So that sounded pretty good, right? And then your questions, all right, so how would 5PL come in and help on this one? It sounds to me you get a couple of good contract negotiator knows what they're doing, and they had the very good experience on COA, and then they can cover it, right? Well, partially yes, but it really is all about the term as some owner operator refer to as EFA, the Enterprise Framework Agreement, which is basically at the corporate level, the long-term agreement, and that's where the COA would fit in. So to go in together with that, you would actually need a good and competent category management to actually be able to screen over all these steamship lines or the carriers, the maritime or ocean carriers, and to differentiate their service and to make the good portfolios on each and every one of them. Because basically, personally, I don't think most of those guys, the steamship lines out there, are really competing in every single subcategory. No, they all have their own niche service features. Some they may or may not even realize themselves. But you, as a good, competent category manager in this category, what you're really supposed to do is to differentiate them. It's not just about their service frequency, their transit time, their rates. It's more about what kind of ships do they have, and we're talking about ship hull size, and then the heavy lift gear capacities, the drafts, and everything. Because some of the projects you can deploy certain type, whereas other projects you can't, right? So that's only about the ships. And then you are also coming to what type of operation expertise do they have, right? And what has been their records on the safe shipping. And in this case, if you're the owner operator of oil, chemical, gas, and everything, you don't really concern yourself that much about the freight rate because that's probably the least cost. Although every dollar counts, but more importantly is the possible delay of the carriage, and it happens all the time. Whoever's fault it is, basically, you miss the late can. Not only you pay for the debt freight and you have to basically hire another ship and all that, but the problem is you're looking at the delay, right? For whichever ship goes back there and pick up that same thing, supposed to be or scheduled for pick up 10 days or 2 weeks or even a month ago, you're looking at the delay for the installation and erection schedule according to the master plan, right? And that, if you delayed by a month, we're looking at 30 days of operational revenue loss, which could amount to quite many millions of dollars. Of course, depends on the production capacity of the project, right? So anyway, back to the point, you do need to develop this COA as an EFA at the logistic category management level. And 5PO comes in, help you to do this work carefully and can do better job than the manually done. Basically, this would be a typical application of big data. The statistic will basically help you to pile a good base of a portfolio and then keep it updated with the service performances, because after all, if the COA is not monitored for the service performance, it means nothing, absolutely nothing, because if, and this is typically what happens, when the market situation is in the favor of the steamship lines, they always find the excuse to shy away from their commitments. They would tell you the stories after stories that they have to roll over your shipment. They could not, even though they're willing to, let's say, honor the rates, which is whatever, the more favorable rate. At that kind of market, you would be, way below the market rate. And that's actually the exact reason why they don't want to commit to the cargo space and get your cargo loaded. They want to push it off, right? And that's when you actually, as the owner-operator of oil, gas, and chemical, that's exactly when and where and how you need this COA in your favor, because a lot of other guys, they simply could not get their capital equipment loaded on time, because the market change, I guess not in the favor of the oil companies in this case. You have a project master plan to catch, and this steamship lines are playing their games. So what do? If you really have a COA in hand, this is the time you call them up, say, hey guys, we do have COA, we got a deal. You better, do your part. So when the market change in our favor, you will see that, we are willing to honor our commitment. So anyway, this is how the COA service performance should be monitored and updated to make the portfolio of those steamship lines actually count, right? So you have the service performance monitored, and then when the let's say the project management call up, say, hey, I need to have the capital equipment coming out of which country and going to our project site, which is where, and we don't know if we could get those capital equipment shipped in time. Well, if you're the category manager, you can say, don't worry about it. We do have COA, and I look into the portfolio. It's actually covered. We do have a couple of steamship lines actually on that trade route, and they have the right type of ships. And here's their service frequency, blah, blah, blah. So your, basically a logistic plan will be made accordingly. So anyway, that's the whole part of 5PL service help on this kind of contract. And then, is it just a logistic? No, actually. Because now we're at the digital age, the 21st century and everything, we see a lot of digital projects out there, onshore, offshore, right? So what does that mean? That poses a real threat and challenge for the IT procurement guys. And here's the situation that I believe everybody in this category management group would, at whatever owner-operator company would face, very similar pattern. When a project management call you up, they need everything done yesterday, literally, because they're always behind schedule. And so you look at this somewhat rather complicated system. You're looking at the software, hardware, firmware, the whole system, and then immediately you're thinking one thing. The first thing that you're come to your mind: who's going to support all this, right? If they are all the small vendors, each one of them is so great, they have the niche in their own scope, but who's holding the big picture? When something happens, what you don't want is this finger point syndrome, oh, it's that guy's fault. Oh, I don't have anything to do with that. So you want to have a more integrated service support at the system level. Can you do that? Well, the category management, most of them do have a couple of, big vendor name. And I'm not going to name any names here. I don't want any legal trouble. But personally, when you look at those big guys, what do they have as off-shelf product they can offer to you, regardless their price? Okay, forget about that. Just say the availability. Most likely, they don't have exactly what you want and need, right? So the big guys, they're out of the picture. And the small guys, oh, they come in. And some of them say, yep, I will do whatever you need. And when they quote the rate, oh my God, it is so good, so appealing to the project management. And guess what? The project man, they don't really have the long-term concern, right? Because what they're doing is for the project. And so basically, oh, really? For a few $1 million, you really will do everything we ask you to do? Great. So what the project management don't know is this guys, the reason they can do what the bigger, we're not talking big, even let's say medium-sized company will not even touch at that budget, is because these little guys, they cut corners, right? When they do cut their corner, and as a, quote unquote professional IT procurement guy, you always have this concept of service level agreement. But if you actually have your own background, the IT background on the technical side, then there's no way you can really, push for a real serious service level agreement on these little guys. Because if you do, when you push, they go belly up on you. And your project management, they're not going to be happy, right? So when you're looking at this short-term solution and the project managers say, okay, you're not going to have more than 3 weeks. Okay, I wish you could, get this done in 1 week, but in the worst case scenario, 3 weeks, that's it. You're going to have to basically wrap it up and go. We need this yesterday. Okay, so you're pushed. But you're sitting there and thinking, well, if I sign this contract, basically just it's my blind eyes and I don't see this, I don't hear that. What happens when the contract is signed, right? Oh, there's always going to be some, project management team for the implementations. It may or may not have anything to do with you. All right, so you fry it off and you want to make your project manager happy. So you get the contract signed. Okay. So when you have one contract, two contract, and eventually almost all the contracts signed this way, there's never going to be anything long-term and everything is short-term. And there's always going to be a lot of problem basically left behind. And that is why your internal IT support team, they're always going to be very upset because the kind of contract you pulled for the project management, which create problems for them. Seriously, you ever thought about the network security? How is that going to be addressed? Do you even know all the risks, or do you even care? Or, to be fair, did you even have time to care about all that? So what happens is everybody rushes, on a short-term basis, day in, day out. Nobody's covering what is, what should be covered. And so who's doing the long-term? Basically nobody. So how do you really do long-term? I would say if I were to be or placed in charge of this kind of project, what I would do, I would really first try to develop the business application to define the short-term, mid-term, the long-term, and then basically find out what kind of the general direction it's going to be and what's the procurement strategy and who could be the valid vendors that to be vetted and screened off, and to basically bring those guys in, right? And then to develop the kind of business application requirement for them to weigh in, basically how much they're going to put in and in how many years what's going to be their ROI on their investment. And then there, you get your quality products that you procure from those IT vendors, right? So this is a good way to go with the category management for IT procurement. And this is exactly where 5PO could help. If you want to know more, we can always go into details.